Okay, just wait a minute. Oh. Okay. Hey.
Hello, Paige. Good to have you back. I've been putting up some pretty good videos lately, no questions. Everyone gets it. Everyone's watching it. No? Yes. You get it, don't you, buddy? Me too. I figure if I keep chipping away at these guys, maybe it'll finally get through. It seems so strange to me that throughout the history of mathematics and all the philosophers that have ever lived, how I've never heard the stuff that I'm saying. Like, it doesn't seem like anyone's really looked at the function of math, like how it actually works at the most fundamental level. It doesn't seem like anyone's really just taken a rigorous exploration of that. Everyone just shrugs their shoulders and believes what they've been taught since childhood. And I guess the problem is that it works, right? Like it works, but it works to create technology, and that technology is going to kill all life on the planet. So no one seems to want to investigate the status quo. I wrote a blog this morning questioning quantity and addition and subtraction, how it all's supposed to operate, and none of it makes any freaking sense. But it works. Which theory? Like the one that relates to my theory? Hey, Jan Can. Wow. And is he looking at it, or has he given you a response yet? See, what I like about the CTM, what I do like about the CTMU is that it recognizes that you have to have included in the theory a source, an absolute source that is transcendent of the system. But Chris doesn't come up with the conclusion that each individual is that the self is finally that absolute source that he calls God. So there's still that separation between God and self. I'm not big on any Buddhist stuff at all. I was Buddhist for a decade and it didn't work for me, man. As far as I can tell about Buddhism is that it it denies the self, denies that there's even a self. So it gets rid of, again, it's like the CTMU. Buddhism is like the CTMU in that it doesn't, no, it isn't, because it doesn't even recognize that there is an absolute. In a way, the CTMU is more closer to reality than Buddhism, because as far as I can tell, Buddhism doesn't believe in any absolute that is transcendent of the duality. There's just duality. There's no, it denies the self. It denies the existence of a self. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't clarify itself very well, because I don't know who said emptiness is form and form is emptiness, but that's the dualistic system. What is that? What is that? Whatever that is, it has to have a name. I the yeah, it's nihilism. That whoever said that whole not this, not this, it's 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 not this. That's just nihilism. They can't get away from it. If you can't just say form is emptiness, emptiness is form because that's a Ponzi scheme. What's the is? What is the is that's trying to balance this equation? What's that? Emptiness is form, form is emptiness. There's two outcomes to that. It's either nihilism or dualism. There's no way to out of it. Is that if you hold on to form is emptiness, emptiness is form, it's like saying E equals MC squared, but that hasn't really solved anything, has it? People are still wondering, well, what is that? They're still working on that. I don't know. They're as far as I'm concerned, Buddhists are really confused. They're very confused. There is no bliss in dualism. It's all unsubstantial. Well, Rusty, I think that you're fooling yourself. So compassion. Well, does someone have? And here's another thing where Buddhists fall short is that they don't recognize the world as an illusion. That it's not even part of their teaching that the world is an illusion. So so they get confused with compassion. So do you while you're in a dream, and even if it's a lucid dream, do you have compassion for the dream characters? Do you have compassion for the non-player characters in a video game? Well, no, of course not, because they don't exist as individuals. You think, Rusty, you think that there's a balance, that there's the material world and the spiritual world and that they're on equal level, but they're not. The entire all of experience is an illusion. It's all as unsubstantial as the playing of a video game. But Rusty, the point of the matter is that your name here is one of those characters. It's a not it's a video game character. It's not you. If balance is equanimity, equanimity is found in what I'm doing, sitting in this thought-free state. You only need food and water if you want to stay in this simulation. If you don't want to stay in this simulation, then none of it matters. You talk about the poles in one video. On one side is the body, on the other side is mind. I am more on the side of mind. Does that mean that it would be good for me to focus on the body side? Yeah, I think that if we would just adhere to the natural evolution of what's going on, rather than the unnatural evolution of following technology, we would be realized. We would this physical realm is concluding. So if you just naturally so the voice in your head is your future ego. That's if there's a voice nattering on in your head that you can't control, that just means that that future ego of yours is alive and well, and that you're probably just going to move into that in the next iteration when there's no more physical bodies to move into. So, yeah, it's humanity is all about transcending that voice in your head. That is the spiritual goal that humanity should be focusing on, is transcending the voice in your head, silencing it. So yeah, work on that. Be in the physical realm, but eventually even the physical realm has to be recognized as being as unsubstantial as the thought realm. So, but right now, what's more prevalent with human consciousness and what's driving us into deeper and deeper delusion is our attention on the thought realm. So yeah, that's what meditation is for, is to transcend, silence that voice in your head. The future, yeah, the it is from the future. Everything you look at and experience in the physical realm is the past, and the voice in your head is the future. So if you don't want to be a part of this simulation anymore, if you don't want to keep going on and on and on playing video games, then you need to transcend the voice in your head, because that's your future egoic self. All right. Well, now you have to tell us how it went with your professor there, SS. No, I don't want to be a part of this simulation anymore. Obviously, that's the whole thing. All of non-conceptuality, the meaning of life, is to escape this realm. The meaning of all of this, the purpose of this life, is to conclude it. We've got everything inverted. Evolution, we think that evolution is to just stay alive, to stay within it, to stay within. And that's because everything that takes itself to be an individual within this simulation is in delusion. And that delusion causes them to want to continue on being in this realm. And that is caused because of the fear of non-existence, which my theory also it also takes care of the fear of non-existence, because it proves that non-existence is just a fantasy. So there's no fear of death. Yeah, yes, this entire realm is suffering. So it's not the lows, it's not getting what you want that's the suffering. It's the inability to recognize that it's all unsubstantial, like playing the video game. If you think that you're going to find completion and satisfaction within this realm, that's suffering, right? Because it's just empty. It's just like playing a video game. When you're done, it just meant nothing, right? And all of this means nothing. The only purpose to this is like a labyrinth, is to escape it. It's a puzzle. It's a mystery to solve. That's what this life is. It's a mystery to solve, and once you've solved it, then it's done. Death is birth. Life and death, birth and death are the poles of life. There's only life. Death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. And birth and death are the poles, the superposition of life. You know what? This I have achieved and maintained a certain material and financial wealth due to my practice. This has only occurred to me in the last 3 years. The 51 years previous, well, not being a child, I guess I didn't work too hard, but I have ass, busted my ass doing work that machines should have been doing. like, like, and my good fortune is a result of my spiritual practice. It's not the other way around. Wow, so wow. That's amazing. So logically, you have you have connected my theory with the CTMU in a logical framework that stands up. Is that what you're saying? And if your professor can see it this way, do you think Chris Langan could? He's too far gone, right? It's too bad I can't follow it. I just don't know why. It's maybe because it's too logic based for me. I just, wow. Wow, man. This is big, right? Like, is this an actual academic paper that you've written? Like you've presented it to him as an academic paper. No, my awakening has been very gradual. Wow. So to make this all about me, SS, does this get the word out? Like, does this, does this, is this going to work as a hook to get academics to look at my work? Like to take seriously? But these are people who don't believe in the CTMU too, right? Like it's correcting the CTMU. Is that right? Like it does it point out how the CTMU, where it's lacking and where it's incomplete? discredited by who? Yes, but my theory doesn't require the CTMU, where the CTMU requires my theory, correct? Like I don't. My theory doesn't need the CTMU to come up with the true TOE, right? I got to focus on this one conversation at a time here, because this what's in the making. So I want to talk about that. See, and what I'm trying to do this with mathematics itself, correct? Like I'm doing the same thing that you're doing with the CTMU, but I'm doing it with all of mathematics. Okay. But but do you see how I'm trying to do the same thing with mathematics itself, right? Like I'm trying to incorporate my model into mathematics to correct all of the problems within mathematics. The problems that people don't see as problems. That's the problem, is that there are problems in mathematics that people don't see as problems. They just work with it. They have fun asking the questions about nothing. How can something come from nothing, and why does something exist rather than nothing? And why does mathematics is mathematics discovered or invented? So my theory fixes all that if mathematics is adapted as my theory says it should be. You see, that's what I'm trying to do, right? Like, I think it's the same thing. You're trying to show how the CTMU is lacking, and that my theory, if you plug it into that, it fixes it. And I'm doing the same thing with all of mathematics. Yeah, yeah. Like this is where we got to go, man. Like fuck the CTMU. Like who cares about the CTMU other than CTMU cults, the culters, the cult members. So let's work on that SS. Like mathematics itself. Like to me, it all makes complete perfect sense. Like but it's like again, it's like trying to show someone that doesn't believe that there's a problem, that there's a fucking problem, even though there are these questions that have been unanswered for millennia, right? And then my theory comes along and just changes the perspective of everything, and fixes those questions, resolves all those paradoxes, and yet people still don't see. Like they don't see. Oh, if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out. our dictatics is like the most effective system of thought ever produced to produce more thought. to a certain to a certain type of personality, mathematics is a puzzle that just mesmerizes. Okay, well, if that's your perspective that you need both, then go for it. But but we need to show mathematicians, economists that how mathematics is incorrect, how it doesn't. It actually does not have a natural causal relationship with the physical realm. That attachment between mathematics and the physical realm is imagined, and it's incorrect because how it works is that it develops technology, and that technology is going to destroy organisms on the planet. All life on the planet it's going to destroy. So that's how it's fucking wrong. Yes, math is that's exactly it. Math, all of it, beyond the number system. The number system, 0 to infinity, that is a message that I've properly interpreted. And the connection between mathematics and the physical world, they try to do it through quantity, but quantity is a made up fantasy that we just don't question. What is it? How does it relate to the physical world? Well, it doesn't. It's just a belief. Quantity is a belief as much as any religious belief that it's quantity is a belief. Mathematics, the belief that mathematics is relating to the physical realm is equivalent to the belief that the Bible is God's word and God's word is right. Period. It's that much of a delusion. No, that's exactly it. Is that mathematics does a great job not only of relating to the illusion, but creating it. It projects the illusion. It projects the illusion. That's what it does. So the improper interpretation of the message just leads to a deeper delusion that the illusion is the reality. Again, it's symbol, right? Symbol is the conduit that that Maya is creating to get us to just shift our attention without causing much attention into the thought realm. So language is symbol, and symbol is a conduit that connects the physical mind, the physical realm, to the thought realm. As the next iteration of samsara. And it's our very awareness, our attention, where we put our attention, that makes this become real, makes it appear as though it's real. So the thought realm could be just language, right? There's no physical sensations. The thought realm could be just a realm of language where the rules, like the laws of that realm, aren't gravity and the physical laws that seem to govern the physical realm, but the laws of language. So it could literally just be the voice in your head. The thought realm, the mind realm, the Platonic realm, it could be exactly just language. Like just, and the laws of language are the laws of that realm. Yeah, science is all quantity, isn't it? And the hard problem of consciousness is trying to fit that in with the quality, right? They're trying to jam in quantity on the same level as qualia, and it doesn't work. They're two different realms. Quantity only relates to the thought realm. It doesn't relate to the physical realm at all. And the belief that it does has created technology, and technology is going to kill everything. So obviously it's fucking wrong. That's how it's wrong. That's how math is wrong, is that it's going to kill all biological life on the fucking planet. But the programming's so deep. The brainwashing is so, it starts in kindergarten, and for some of these academics, it hasn't stopped. They're in their 50s and 60s still being brainwashed. So it's very, very difficult to snap these guys out of their delusion. But the language of math is just describing math. It's not describing anything in the physical realm. Yeah, fiat mathematics is fiat. That's exactly it. Mathematics is fiat. That's brilliant. It's just like, imagine that the monetary system is all mathematical and not relating to the physical realm. And that's how we come up with MMT and the delusion that MMT can somehow operate on a planet with limited resources, finite resources. It's complete fucking delusion. And this is another example, probably the best example of how academia is Looney Tunes, not in touch with reality, is because there's 100 PhD level academics in the Federal Reserve System, and the monetary system is what's basically causing climate change and the raping of the planet of all of its resources because of MMT and because it's not connected with the economics of the natural world. So yeah, fiat currency is hand in hand with all of mathematics not being connected to the physical realm. It's obvious. The monetary system is also not connected to the physical realm at all. It's all math. And look at what it's doing. It's going to end up in hyperinflation. The whole monetary system is going to end up in hyperinflation because it's a Ponzi scheme, because it's not connected to the physical realm anymore. It tries to be its own source. Ugh. And all these freaking smarty pants guys are too afraid to have this discussion with me. They just want to keep trying to ignore it. That's great. Well, then you've got his ear for the next, you've got his eyes for the next iteration of this, of your theory, right? Where you can really stick it to math itself, right? Just show, like I've been trying to show, just through reason, not necessarily logic itself, because there's, I don't think you can prove anything with just logic itself. There has to be some intuitiveness to it. Most academics are specialists in a narrow domain. Most academics don't have that prerequisite knowledge base to comprehend the contents of the theory. Yeah, that's another thing, is that everyone moves into such specialization, is that it, they can't see the whole. They just see pieces. Here's my little piece. Here's their piece that they're also specialized in. And then when they put it together, it just doesn't, the pieces don't quite fit. But if it's a puzzle, they're jamming the pieces in. It's like, yeah, that fits. Look, see, they fit together. It's just all mashed up. It's like, no, they're actually not fitting together. You're imagining that that's the image. You're imagining that those pieces are fitting. But for me, I've just looked at the whole time. I've just keep looking at the biggest picture possible. And then it turns out that the way to figure it out isn't by reductionism. Reductionism is explained when you understand the whole. So you understand all the pieces by understanding the whole, not the other way around. because the pieces are just holographic expressions of the whole anyway, right? Well, I wouldn't call that genius then. I would call that just learning shit. Right? Genius is coming up with something original. Learning a bunch of shit isn't genius. It's just being really smart. It's having a high IQ. That doesn't mean you're a genius. To me, genius is coming up with something original that's true, which makes me the greatest genius in the history of geniuses. it just, it it just does. I just am. I'm the greatest genius that's ever lived. Imagine that. Yeah, there's no reason to any of this. Everything dies. Everything dies, passes away. Everything within this realm is impermanent. It like making it all about Roy Dobson again. I would say that I would say that the first human, the first person to correctly interpret two or three direct messages from God, the creator, the only one in all of history, the first one that's called, the first person to properly interpret messages from God that everyone else throughout all of history has been misinterpreted, that has to be the greatest genius that's ever lived. You designed this game for your entertainment. And are you not entertained? Is it worth working really hard? No, it's not worth working really hard to achieve your own dreams in this realm. No, that's all distraction. Whatever comes to you within this dream as you're getting out of the dream, that's appropriate. There, yeah, like there is no Roy Dobson. So when I say this stuff, it doesn't really mean anything. Like there's Roy Dobson is just a tool through which this has become recognized. This is being revealed to humanity through this tool that's Roy Dobson. I mean, no one knew of Albert Einstein before he was Albert Einstein. No one knew of Jesus Christ before he was Jesus Christ. And no one knows of Roy Dobson before people know of Roy Dobson. It's the same fucking thing that just keeps going over and over and over throughout all of history. Is that usually these geniuses and great spiritual enlightened beings, it's not recognized until they're dead that it's all that, what it really is. I would say no, I haven't. Well, yeah, I've suffered physically. Like I've worked outside most of my life, so lifting heavy objects, I think that I had a lot of physical karma to work off because my God, have I ever worked. Like lifting railway ties all day, every day, and it's piecework. So as fast as I possibly can, all day, every day, lifting railway ties. And at the same time, trying to reconcile uh, quantum mechanics with gravity while I'm doing it. So yeah, and freezing my toes and hands and just over and over and over. So yeah, I think that I've had a lot of physical karma to work through. Not a lot of like actual physical pain, but just like a lot of shit to put up with. Oh, I know. I know. I piss a lot of people like James. James accuses me of having God complex. It's like, well, if you see what I see, then you obviously don't see what I see that clearly, James, even though you're saying that you do. Because if you saw what this message and this theory, then the same conclusion is that, well, this is a direct message from God, and therefore, reasonably, logically, Roy Dobson is a messenger of God. So, have there been messengers of God in the past? Story has it. So why can't it be this Roy Dobson fella? Well, all this comfort is going to go away. All of this is collapsing, and it's going to be shocking to most people on how fast it happens. Because I've been watching it happen. This collapse of society, basically civilization and the human species. I've been watching this for a few years now, so it's already unfolding for me. So it won't be such a shock. It won't be so like instant to me how this when this happens. But to most people who haven't got a clue about the monetary system or like with climate change deniers, this is going to happen so fast and all of their comfort will be gone instantly. And that will be hell. Like this is our idea of hell. We have a concept of hell. We have this concept, ingrained concept of hell. Gone through this before. We're in a time loop and we've experienced this extinction event before, and we're going to experience it again. Hell. People will be eating each other. There will be no food in the grocery stores. So much for comfort, right? Everything swings back. Taoism, everything just reverts back to the natural state. Yeah, of course, right? Because science is always backward looking, right? Science is it's always one step behind. Yeah, because these self-enforcing feedback loops, that's when they flip, that is literally the beginning of an exponential process, right? When these force self-enforcing feedback loops start really getting momentum, that's when everything just goes like this. And we're like here on the exponential curve, and soon it'll be basically straight up. So, and the thing about exponential, I guess that the force, like if you have two really strong magnets and you're trying to hold them apart, I guess that the force that brings them together, I guess that is actually exponential. So we're at that point right now where we're barely holding those two really, really strong magnets apart like this. And just just a tiny little millimeter closer and bang, right? It's just almost instantaneously. That's where we're at. It's so close that these magnets are just going to slam shut and everything will switch back to the normal state of complete balance and unity, and you will meet your maker. Everyone will come face to face with God in a way that they haven't for billions of years from a relative standpoint. So in sleep, dreamless sleep, we get back to back to the absolute, back into perfect unity. And in the death state, that's another longer, deeper experience of meeting God or abiding in self or whatever you want to call it. And then extinction is the next level of deepness, of relative experience, direct experience with God. So it's best to prepare. You're going to meet God in a way that you haven't met God in a long time. God is the middle column of my fundamental model of reality. But yeah, it's you. God is the frame of reference upon which all of this occurs. God is existence itself. Yeah, so the self is God, and everyone's I is the same self. We all say I, and that I is referring to, well, the Atman, and the Atman is the same as Brahman. So instead of going I am or I will or I did or I shouldn't or I dot dot dot, just go I and then collapse back into Brahman. But if you go I dot dot dot, then that's ego. So Atman is kind of facing both ways. It can go back to potential, back to Brahman, or it can turn the other way and look out and go outwards into ego and the world. So, yeah, so here's the thing about consciousness is that in my model, consciousness is simply awareness of something. That's it. So everything is consciousness, but none of it is conscious. Not even this. This body is not conscious. It's consciousness. This is a huge distinction. If people would just follow my model, we could conclude this whole hard problem of consciousness shit. Because there has to be a distinction between awareness, which is the absolute frame of reference upon which all this occurs, and then there's the content within the frame of reference, which is consciousness. So all physical objects, whether it's organic or inorganic, is consciousness, but none of it contains consciousness. Awareness contains consciousness, right? Awareness contains consciousness. None of the world contains consciousness. It is consciousness. It's so clear to me, like, it just, like, someone's gotta talk to me about this. I think it's gotta be Robert Kuhn. It's gotta be Robert Kuhn, I think. This obviously fixes everything. Your hypothesis, do we stay in this realm of spirit in a non-physical state when we die, or are there infinite realms? No, when we die, there's no it's like dreamless sleep in that there's no content of awareness. There's no experience, there's just the experiencer. So this realm goes away. See, this the experiences are what arise and fall within that awareness that just is. So I know it's really difficult from the ego's perspective to try to it can't understand how there can just be one, just with no boundaries, with no experience, but just the experiencer. It literally is a state that defies description, and that's why there's Taoism. That's why there's the Tao that cannot be named. Robert and I have corresponded through email, and he has liked three of my, not that I'm counting, three of my Twitter posts that are quite hardcore, right? Like pointing things out that are like, hey, look at this. This is pretty crazy, right? And he's liked those comments. And it seems like he's genuinely. I attended a Zoom meeting where he was being interviewed, and I actually got to ask him a question directly in that Zoom meeting. And I asked him when he was going to interview me. So I think he's following my shit. He's got to be. Like anyone that's got half a fucking brain, and this guy, not a genius, sorry, he's brilliant. He's brilliant. He's a very brilliant man. And I think he's sincere. So I think he's probably following my stuff and taking it seriously. I do. He and Edward Frankel are the only two academics who've ever gotten back to me. Well, there was this one guy, but we ended up not jiving very well either. And he's one person, but they both have responded to my emails. So I'm still working on both of them through Twitter usually. There's a big forgetting component in all of this. There's a forgetting. There's a pretending, right? So playing make believe, you suspend your understanding of what's real in order to play. And that's what's going on here is God is suspending the sense of what's real in order to play. And that could be, it's not really forgetting, is it? Like when an actor is acting a role, that could be called a forgetting of types, but it's an acting, it's a pretending. And that's what all of this is. So there's this component of forgetfulness or not, of ignorance, ignoring what's real temporarily in order to play. So, SS, are you going to try to get your theory past Chris's minions to try to get it to Chris Langan? Are you part of that CTM groupie group? They wouldn't let me in. Imagine that. I come in both guns blazing. It might take a long time to infiltrate that cult, though. I don't know if you want to try to infiltrate that cult and get to Chris somehow. And is Chris the type of guy that'll go, "Oh yeah, wow, I've been wrong. I'm going to adapt everything that I've thought of and change it." Don't know if he's that kind of a dude. Hmm. Bernard, he's in that groupie, right? He's in that group, in that cult. And talk about someone that's so close, but yet so far. You know what Bernard told me? And this is where it ended, where I stopped even trying to communicate with him. He told me that he could stop thinking at any point. I challenged him. I said, "Well, what about this? Like, are you able to just stop thinking and and abide in the thought-free state?" And he said he could anytime he wanted to for as long as he wanted to. Now, I didn't call bullshit right to his face, but really, really, it, the way he goes on and on and on, I have a very hard time believing that he can stop the on and on and oning. So either he's a liar, which is not cool, or he's enlightened. Anyway, It's kind of irrelevant. I want to spend my energy talking to people who want to know and understand this theory, not trying to convince people of its validity. I'm not, I'm, it's almost like either people see it or they don't. And no amount of, it's like, again, it's just like trying to deprogram someone out of a cult. They just are unable to see what's most obvious. So what you're saying is that you've literally had near death experience? I I have a float tank, which is sensory deprivation chamber, and yeah, I can confirm that too. There's wow, yeah, that's pretty cool. I've experienced not really physical death, so to say, but ego death in the float tank. When I took salvia, like gone, no sense of an individual self. Yeah, so I would I would word it differently than living forever because forever infers time and infinity, whereas my model says that it's timeless. That which exists, that which is existence, is the self, and that is outside of time and space. So time flows through the absolute. So we can't include, I'm being nitpicky because when it comes down to these fundamental levels, it's kind of important is that the absolute is timeless. And to incorporate time into it causes a lot of problems. Mm. Yeah, it's turtles all the way, right? It's just built on simulation, built on simulation. None of them are fundamental reality. That which is observing all of the occurrences and experiences, that is the fundamental reality. And it doesn't require content. The awareness requires no content. That's crazy, man. Yeah, wow. It could also be that that life has been fully lived too now. Like maybe so when Ramana Maharshi's mother died, through the death process, he had one hand on her forehead and one hand on her heart. And what he was doing, he was fast forwarding all of her karma, her next life, and maybe the next life after that, or however many lives, experiences she was going to have in her future. He was fast forwarding her through that because he's God and he can do whatever the hell he wants. Thank you very much. and so that may be one of these lives that you need to experience in order to have your karmic momentum express itself fully. See this whole notion of choosing as well, right? Like the more that you are self-aware, I believe the more freedom you have in the state. You won't be just carried away in ignorance with the process. If you are aware that you are the witness and all of this is occurring within you, then you will have more freedom on what experience you will have next, or if you will have no experience next. Yeah, yeah. That sounds like a lot of China. A lot of Chinese people in that one, in that cycle. Like there may be this notion of choice and free will. It may be that there is, after you choose a life, there's really very little choice to be made within that life. There's very little that can be done within that life. It's like picking a when you used to go to Blockbuster and pick out a DVD, and that's your life, and you got to put it in and play. And it's not, or video game. There's a little more interaction than a movie, but still, it's within the constraints of the programming of that system. So there, in the playing of a video game, there's a very narrow band of free of things that you can do in that video game, right? That would be the free will. You can run over there, you can run over there. But other than that, the whole thing is just going, it's advancing, right? The whole game is doing its game thing. And you have, after you enter the game, you have very little choice in the matter. And I think this is what's happening, is that in the death state, there may be free will as to which game you're going to play, which life you're going to live. If the more self-aware you are of what you really are, that you're God, the more choice you will have in that life. So some may choose, well, this life, I realize my enlightenment and I'm done. It may be something like that. It's like, all right, well, I want this to be the last one. I'm pretty close to knowing who I am. So this life is the one that gets me the hell out of here. It's, in a way, it's similar to salvia, my salvia experience, except that salvia, there's no sense of self in that other world. Like you're in another world. It's not this world, but there's no sense of an identity in that world. So you know you exist, but there's no identity behind that existence, right? There's no memory, there's no knowledge of your name, there's there's no knowledge of or experience of a body. It's it's ego death. So in a way, it's more of a deep, it's even a deeper, more profound experience than the death state, because in the death state you still carry an ego with you, right? And that's what brings you back, I guess. But with salvia, that you can't take anything with you. There's nothing going along for that ride. And along with that salvia trip, what I did come back with is that there never ever has been a Roy Dobson it's all just an imagination. I think I think mind is still inside of time, but it's the arrow of time is going in the opposite direction. So time in the realm moves forward, and time in the mental realm moves backward because it's non-physical, and it probably travels. I don't even know what that means. It travels through time faster than the speed of light. So that's why it can go backwards in time. So with death, your ego dies and your spirit goes on. With salvia, the ego and spirit die. But yeah, so I don't, this, what I call spirit is the absolute that is the frame of reference, right? So I don't, I don't like the word soul. There isn't a disembodied, non-physical entity that moves from one experience to another. All experience actually flows through the absolute, which is timeless. So I think with salvia, it just tweaks the nervous system. It's in such a way that it allows for the direct experience of the wave function. This is how I describe it. I believe that it adjusts the nervous system so you can see behind the screen and experience the point at which the information wave is hitting the back of the screen. So you're not looking at the front of the screen anymore with salvia. You're looking behind the screen at the information wave, at the point where the information wave hits the back of the screen and causes the screen to flash on and off in a given sequence. That's what's happening with salvia. Yeah, I stopped listening to Shunya as well. He says that there's an ego associated with the body, a spirit that inhabits your past. I guess there's not, I don't like that language, but there's nothing wrong with it, I don't think. Now, mushrooms and salvia are two very different animals. But yeah, salvia is definitely because it somehow removes a dimension. It removes a spatial dimension, I believe. At least one spatial dimension, if not two. So it's like there's it's like there's more time than there is space. You're experiencing time more than you're experiencing space when you take salvia. So it's a removal of at least one spatial dimension and the addition of at least another time dimension. I believe that's what's happening. Because there's a definite frequency. There's a pulsing, there's a frequency, a very strong feeling of a frequency, and everything arises and passes at once rather than in a linear form. And you're experiencing all of this, all the entire universe arising and passing at once. And there's like an emptiness behind it. There's a phenomenon behind that is not physical. And I have a lot of salvia. I want to be a guide, a salvia guide. Like in South America, they have ayahuasca guides. Well, I want to be that for salvia. So people will be going to South America for ayahuasca to do ayahuasca, and they'll be coming to British Columbia to do salvia. Yeah, see, this is the problem. This is the problem with the of consciousness, right? Is that mind and spirit have coalesced into what we call consciousness. That's the problem, is that mind and spirit need to be separated, and consciousness is the word that people use to mix the two. That's the problem. There, I just fixed it again. So yeah, the language has to be adapted to recognize that mind and spirit are different, and body and mind are different, and body and mind are not causally related. They're relating directly to spirit. And consciousness is awareness of a phenomenon, whether that is mind or sensations. So consciousness can be both thoughts and sensations, but the thoughts and sensations aren't causally related. They're unified in and as the spirit. Yeah, but this is, again, see, this is the problem. This is the problem, is that to me, mind is just the thoughts in your head. It's everything that isn't physical. Mind is exactly that which is not the senses. And unfortunately, neuroscience has just thrown it all into, it's all just electrical impulses in the brain, right? Whether it's a thought, whether it's a non-physical thought, the voice in your head, or a sensation, they've all lumped that all together and called that mind. But it isn't. Sensations are not mind. Sensations are the physical world, and mind is the voice in your head, which is non-physical. So neuroscience is the latest red herring that Maya has thrown into the mix to just distract. It's a red herring. It is neuroscience and the studying of electrical impulses in the brain is exactly a red herring that Maya is used to throw us off the track of the purpose of all of this. It's just, when in doubt, you just throw in confusion, right? Complication and confusion. It's like the legal system. No one understands the legal system, and it's like economics. It's like banking. No one understands all the rules. It's just there to complicate and confuse, to throw you off the track so you don't win the game. That's all it is. Maya, it's all about just winning the game. And that is Maya keeping you in the game, keeping you in the labyrinth, keep building the labyrinth. That is the purpose of all of this. So it's just distraction to keep you in the labyrinth. Yeah, what he said. The electrical impulses in the brain are just what cognition looks like across a dissociated boundary. There's no explanatory power behind it. Yes, if a system of thought is developing into further complication, complexity, then that is a clear indication that Maya's just fucking with you. If your system just keeps requiring greater complexity to try to describe reality, then it's just wrong and you need to scrap it and start over. And physics is so freaking complicated that it's resulted in manufacturing the most complicated device ever created, which is the Large Hadron Collider. What could be more complicated than the Large Hadron Collider? And the system of thought that dreamt it up. Hey, James. I don't know what Spanda is. Oh, wow. I wonder why I've never heard that before. I always thought that was Shakti. Well, hi. Mm-hmm. So I might as well put this out here is that I'm looking for a house sitter for this summer because Paige has to stay in Saskatoon and I will need to go on the road to do my drone business thing. And it's going to be a crazy, crazy, crazy fire season. So I'm looking for someone to come here and take care of the house while I'm on the road. So it would just be room and board. I wouldn't be paying any wage for it or anything, but you could stay here and engage in spiritual practice and just make sure that the cats are fed and the house doesn't burn down and the plants are alive for as long as you're able to. But the thing is I wouldn't be able to confirm that I have work until maybe a week or two before I actually go to work. So I'm just putting that out there into the universe that it would be really nice to have someone here for at least part of the summer to take care of this place while I'm away working. So you can email me if you're interested, if anyone is interested. Pretty good place to engage in spiritual practice. It's pretty good, pretty nice spot. Minus all the smoke that will inevitably be here this summer. It's going to be quite smoky. Yeah, you're yeah. I don't think that I would pay for an airline ticket to go halfway across the world. But halfway across North America, maybe. Like, from my perspective, it's pretty exciting the potential here for this non-conceptuality thing. This has the potential to actually be recognized. I already know that it is the final concluding truth, but it has the potential to be recognized as such as well. So to be intimately involved at this level of this new religion. I hate the word religion, but it's basically a new religion. It's almost like being one of the fucking 12 apostles. Like, anyway, that's my perspective, is that it's pretty exciting to be at the ground floor of this whatever the fuck it is, this non-conceptuality thing. Of course, I can't make you excited about it, but this place even a lot type of mythos that goes along with it too. Like basically a castle on a lake in the middle of the beautiful British Columbia. James built the website. The donate feature still doesn't work, but no one ever fucking donates anyway, so. You don't have a passport? Well, yeah, because you're definitely, obviously, one of the people I have in mind, right? When I was talking to, yeah, had you in mind for sure as one of the possibilities, one of the potentials. So yeah, get a fucking passport, man. What are you doing? It would definitely be a way to step up your spiritual practice to another level, right? If you've got no responsibilities here other than feeding the cats and keeping the plants watered, uh, yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity to really deepen your spiritual practice. Well, I don't know how United States, it might be impossible to get one now. I don't. Who knows what is going on with the legal system anymore? It might be easy to get to renew it, or it might be almost impossible to leave the country. Who fucking knows anymore? Our freedoms are slowly being plucked away. Well, gang, I'm getting the feeling that's it for today, for this week. Thanks for dropping by. I enjoy our conversations and the stillness, obviously. So give that idea some thought about staying here for a while this summer. Yeah, thanks, guys and girls